Hey guys, Marvin here with Driven by Graphics, and just working on a project here and wanted to go ahead and record and show how I'm going to make a mock-up file for a client who's looking for a desk set, so a mouse pad and a coaster. So I've got the design file here opened up, and as long as some templates, so it's my mouse pad template, coaster, and a background. So this is the template you would get if you get the blank mousepad and coasters from me. I do have those on my website as blanks that you can order. I'll put those in the description, but this is how the file would open up in Photoshop if you open the PSD file. What I'm going to do is go ahead and rotate that and go to image rotate. It doesn't matter here, clockwise, counterclockwise. In this case, I'm not going to be printing it. I'm just going to use this for the shape of this to create the mockup. And this isn't the only way to create a mockup. It works fairly well for flat objects, and when you're not needing an actual representation of the object itself. So this isn't, the only way. There's definitely many ways to do it, but again, just going through and I'll show you how to do this. So the logo file itself, I'm going to use the move tool to just grab this, and I'm just going to drag it up to that tab of our mouse pad. Once I'm on that tab, basically drag down and you get this plus tool, so I can drop it here, for example. I'm going to undo that and I'll show you a shortcut that helps with this. Once you drag down, if you press then the shift key and then release, it drops it to the center of your canvas. From here you can either, some people leave the transform controls here on, so you can then drag. If you don't have those on, you may know about the transform shortcut, Ctrl+T, that'll bring those up as well. Once you're using the transform tools, if you're new to Photoshop, in this case I can stretch this. In this case I don't want to stretch this, but I can right now. If you hold down the shift key, it will constrain your proportions, so it scales with the same proportions as the original file. And then I'm going to exit here and show you one more thing you can add to that. If you also hold down the Alt key, so I'm now holding Shift and Alt, it will maintain those proportions and stretch from the center. So I dropped it into the center and stretched from the center. So all is centered still. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is change this background of the mousepad itself. I'm going to click on that layer, and I'm just going to do a color overlay. I could just do a basic fill on this, but I'm going to show how to do a color overlay. And this comes up with a pre-selected color. I had done this previous, but I'll show you how I got here. Basically, you can just select on the color. What I did, I sampled this blue color within the logo, which is this darker blue. I didn't want it to match exactly, because there are some places where, so we're off to the side, you can't see it right now, but where right in here actually this shows where the color is the same, and so it blends in quite a bit. So I wanted to lighten that up a bit to provide a little bit of difference in there, a little color separation, if you will, between this blue and the blue of the logo. So we'll lighten it up a little bit, just drag this a little closer to the white. Click OK. So I'll use this as what I'm going to ultimately use as my mousepad mockup. What I want to do for when I drag this over, I don't want to necessarily have to carry over layers and deal with selecting multiple layers when I'm having to resize this on our actual background layer. So what I'm going to do is stamp these into a single layer, but I do want to maintain my individual design layers, because when I provide the sample over to the client, he may say, hey, I don't really care for that background color, I wish you would have picked the yellow instead. And so I don't have to go back and do all this again. But to make it, what I'm going to do is stamp this into one layer while maintaining the individual layers. There's a long shortcut key for this, and it's Ctrl+, Alt, Shift, and the letter E for echo. I don't know why they use E, but that merges them onto this separate layer and then maintains your original layers. If you're on Mac, it's Command, Alt, Shift, E. So now I can drag this separate layer over to our background file, and it's going to tell me, hey, there's a difference in your color profiles of these documents. For what I'm doing, it doesn't matter. So I've got that on there. Now I'm going to do similar on to the coaster. Make sure. Okay, so if I dropped it here, I'll go ahead and do it. It's just looking at what layer I had selected. Held down the shift key, so I was on the bleed layer initially, so it always drops your new object to the layer on top of what you had selected. You can just move that up to the top. Again, I'm going to turn off the bleed layer here, bring in my transform tool, same thing, hold down shift and alt, make this smaller to get it to fit inside here a bit, and move this over some to make it visually centered. I think that looks right. Zoom in a little bit. And then similar in terms of we'll do the same color overlay here. Same color, so they're matching. One thing I'll note, when you do the stamp tool as well, like I did a moment ago, the long shortcut Ctrl+ALT+SHIFT+E, it will put it on top of the layer you currently have selected. So right now I have the actual size layer selected, so if I drop it there, basically it just puts it right here on top, and the logo still, you don't see it moving. The logo is still here on this upper layer. If you want to make sure it always goes on the very top, just select your top layer and then stamp it there, and then that layer's here on top. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's pretty easy to quickly drag and drop the layers, but if you just notice that it drops to a lower layer when you stamp that, it's because of the layer you have selected when you do the stamping. One other thing I'll note on using that shortcut is it only stamps the visible layers. So right now I have these on, I do not have this bleed area on, and so that layer does not get stamped to your merged layer. It's only the visible layers that do that. So drag this over now. Same thing there on the color space. Just kind of put this beside, let's select both, kind of center those up a little better. And obviously don't need this huge background back here, so let's crop a bit. Just bring this in some. Put a little more focus on our items. And then what I want to do right now, it just looks like these flat images just drop straight on there, because this is exactly what I did. But so I want to add some dimension, right? So your mouse pads or coasters, they have, in this case, they've got a black backing, you know, have some dimension here. So I want to add that in this mockup. Again, if in some cases, some people will take a photo of the actual object, and so maybe in the picture you can see some of that edge. In this case, I'm trying to just, you know, build it off from what I've got here. I didn't want to spend the time, in this case, creating that photograph and doing all that when I knew I could get fairly close for what I needed in this case. So anyhow, I'm going to go forward, and what I want to do is basically create a little bit of a shadow and kind of create that dimension, if you will, on the mousepad. One way you can do that with what I've got here is to select all of this object, if you will, the mouse pad, and how kind of a shortcut way you can do this in Photoshop to select all the pixels on a given layer. If you hold down the Control key and click on this layer icon, it will select all the visible pixels on that layer. And so what I'm going to do afterwards is create a new layer and then do an edit fill, and I'm going to fill that with black on the new layer. Now I'm going to deselect that, move it down below my mouse pad, and I'm just going to nudge it over a little bit. And so again, that just creates a little bit of dimension there on that mouse pad. Now I'm going to do the same thing on our coaster. I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to click on this layer icon over here. That creates my selection of the coaster shape. I'll create a new layer, drop that down below, fill it with black, deselect, I just do all shortcuts right there, and just move that over. That does look real strong in terms of that black color here, so I'm just going to reduce the opacity down a bit. Something like that. That's what, 64%. So let's do the same here. I'll just type that in. 64, so they match. So it's not as strong of a black outline there on that on those layers. So that's one way to create some mockups. Like I said, it helps here in this case where I've got a flat object. I'm not doing something like a mug or a tumbler where it has so much shape dimension. You know, they're just flat objects here. So you can use those template files, kind of create your own mockups there fairly easily, pretty quickly, and yeah, and provide that proof over to a customer. Is this what you're looking for? And go from there with the production process as you will. So again, hopefully this helps. Hopefully you picked up some shortcut keys there, and hopefully you can use this in your own business. So look forward to making some more videos, tips and tricks like this, and see you again soon. Take care.